I need to turn a light on. It's getting dark.
Oh.
Sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off in the middle there.
Okay.
You're on a run.
I was on a run.
It was a great run.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Edit this out.
Yeah. Well, we might clip it at the beginning.
Fuck.
That like warming up at the beginning when you were like the Human Torch.
I did.
I
did. That
okay.
was good.
That was an editing choice I made that I thought you might dig.
I like that a lot.
All right. You ready?
I am ready. Ready to cruise. Let's do it. Ready
do
to
this.
roll.
All right. Welcome to Life's Greatest Hits. I'm Jason Earle.
And I am Jordan Foley.
Here's how it goes. We do a vinyl swap each month where we lend each other a physical copy of an album from our personal collection, particularly one we think the other guy hasn't heard or doesn't know all that well. We spend the entire month listening to the album, do our research, jot down our thoughts, and then get together to discuss each record. Conversation could go anywhere, but we'll mainly be focusing on what we think of the album, any takeaways we have, things we learned, and where the listening took us. We'll give each other half the time of the episode to talk about the albums we were given, and then go from there. Jordan, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
Man, I'm great.
Cheers, man. It's been a bit. It's good to see you.
I know we were just talking off mic about how I feel like we see each other all the time, and lately we've both been busy with our various pursuits.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, this is a collaboration between the two of us, but folks, we each have our own creative outlets that we also hold dear to our hearts. And Jordan, you have had so much going on, buddy. What's going on?
So there's been a lot going on since the last time we spoke. I wasn't able to say anything, wasn't allowed to post it or announce it on the social media handles. But when Hurricane Milton was roaring through in Florida, right before it hit, I took a flight up to Nashville, Tennessee, and by the approval of my fiance Mariah, who insisted I not miss this opportunity, I got to perform in the You Got Gold shows, their tribute shows for the late John Prine that his family and the Hello in There Foundation put on every year. They do 3 shows in Nashville. And so these 3 shows were at the Ryman one night. Then my show that I performed in was at the Basement East. And then the following night was the Country Music Hall of Fame. And it's still unreal to even be able to say that out loud in one sentence, that I got to honor, one of my heroes and, somebody that I look up to even to this day and learn so much about on a regular basis. And I got to honor him by playing my favorite John Prine song, which was That's the Way the World Goes Round, with the John Prine band.
Yeah.
So that was absolutely wild. And I think as an artist, I finally found my footing of finally believing in myself. And that's something that I'm finally admitting to myself, and I'm owning up to it. And the more I talk about it, the more I believe in it. So I'm going for it. And that type of show that I played really set the standard, set the tone for where I'm going and where I plan on taking my music. So it was really, truly amazing. I got to meet some amazing folks. Shout out to the Prine family. They were super kind. I literally, the first thing I told Mariah when I came home was, babe, I'm Jordan Foley Prine now. I think they might adopt me.
Yeah.
Just because they were just so sweet and kind.
Ain't it great
and
when you meet
welcoming.
your heroes and they're cool?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was unreal. Got to hang out with Gabe Lee and Tommy Prine. Got to meet their family. Met Gabe's now wife and Tommy's wife, and everybody was super kind. Got to hang out with John R. Miller. Talked to Jesse Wells. I met Caitlin Butts and Cleto Cordero, which was wild. It was so cool to get to meet artists that I admire and look up to and listen to their music on the regular. So it was a very welcoming experience, and I could honestly spend the rest of this episode talking about it.
Yeah.
I got a tattoo to commemorate the whole thing.
Awesome.
On my arm of the earth eating an enchilada. If you are a John Prine fan, you would know that the line in That's the Way That the World Goes Round, there's a whole story that John Prine tells about that on a live track of that song. So I highly recommend you go check that out.
I was going to say, also check out Jordan's performance. It's on YouTube. If you follow Jordan Foley on YouTube, it's so cool. I wish I could have been there. It was so cool to see the performance. You crushed it, dude.
Thanks, man. It was wild. And shout out to our buddy Zach Schultz.
Hell yeah.
Of Americana Curious.
Hell yeah.
I was able to. Zach and his wife came down to You Got Gold as an anniversary gift.
Yeah.
And they let me know that they were coming in, and so I was able to get them comp tickets to be able to go to the Basement East show. And in return, Zach agreed to film my performance.
Yeah.
So it was really, really just an amazing experience, and I'm still on cloud nine even thinking about it. So that's been the main thing with me, just working from there, realizing, my potential, my future, where I'm headed, that sort of thing, especially with the band too. Still trying to iron out our music plans and just where everything's headed. So yeah, it's exciting.
Cool, man.
How about you? How's the marinade going? How's life?
The marinade is going great. Some other gig is the Marinade with Jason Earle podcast, which is it's about the creative process. It's a conversation with creative people. Jordan's been a guest on a couple of times. You guys know that by now. And I've had the coolest time the last few weeks. I haven't released an episode lately just because my day job has been great. It's been wonderful, but it has been demanding as teachers, as Jordan is well aware. October is the worst month.
It is.
We call it Darktober for a reason. I cannot fucking wait for it to end. I hate Halloween. I'm sorry to bring negativity into the podcast right away, but I hate Halloween. It's the worst, and it makes kids crazy. One more day in this godforsaken month, and then I can turn my attention to Thanksgiving break.
Wake me up when October ends.
I fucking hate it. Anyway.
Dude, we got to tell Mariah not to listen to this podcast because she absolutely loves Halloween.
Well, I think I'm the only person on earth who hates October. It's my least favorite month by far. I don't hate anything except October. That's it. I hate racists and October.
Of course.
Right? That's pretty much it. So anyway, I've got a lot of cool stuff going on. I mentioned last time I was going to record with Greg Kreinler, and that went really, really well. Just an incredible artist, awesome. Painter, really wonderful. And then Daryl Hance, who is a wonderful guitar player, very unique guitar player, wonderful songwriter, and who was the original guitar player in the band Mofro, now known as JJ Grand Mofro.
Oh, yeah.
Daryl and I have gotten to know each other over the years, which is a huge thrill for me because I was such a fan of that band for so many years. I mean, I've seen them so many times, but he left the band many years ago, but I got to see him with them, and I still feel like the band is missing something without him. Like there's a signature to his sound and the way he plays, and he's just such a sweet, down-to-earth, cool guy, real thoughtful guy. So
that's great.
We had a great talk. I'm recording with Casey Anderson for the third time now. Tomorrow, I think. Casey's got a great new record called To the Places We Live coming out. I am recording with Amethyst Kia next week.
Oh, that's awesome.
You didn't know that.
No.
That's a genuine surprise, folks.
I'm a big fan of Amethyst.
Yeah,
She's
me too.
Great.
Yeah.
Just heard that one song that she did with Billy Strings. It was real good.
Yep, I'm really excited to talk with her. I've been a fan for a long
So
time.
cool.
And been
What a name drop.
Yeah,
I love your name drops, man.
Yeah, man, I got you.
You've also been playing. You've been playing out and about a little bit here and there, huh?
I have. Thank you. I've been writing a lot, and we're going to talk about that when we talk about this record, actually. Because, I won't get into that yet. We're going to talk about that when we talk about the record that you chose for me. This month, I'm playing at Barley and Vine Beer Garden on the 13th, Folk Night. If you're not busy, I'd love if you came out and maybe even jump up on stage and sing.
I will see what I can do. What's up? What weekday is that?
It's a Wednesday.
Wednesday's possible.
The great Stephen Rock. I'm trying to recruit to get there as well. Folks who don't know, look up Stephen over on SoundCloud. I'm not sure you can find him anywhere else, but...
No, he has all of his music on SoundCloud. That's where he sends me the music all the time.
Yeah.
I told Stephen Rock that I want to produce his music.
He's one of my favorite songwriters anywhere. He's one of the most
that's
unique people,
something.
Unique minds.
It's one of those things that I'm trying to put that in. If I speak it out loud, it'll happen.
Man, well, I'm all on board for that.
That'd be great.
Hoping that happens, man. So yeah, lots of cool stuff. I also want to give a shout out to the Records Revisited podcast. I'm gonna record with those guys coming up in a week. we are going to do an episode of that podcast where we look at Lucero's 1372 Overton Park, which is one of my all-time favorite records.
So cool.
One of their Patreon revisitors has listened to the show quite a bit and knows that I'm a fan and asked me to come on and talk about Lucero with them.
That's so great.
Really, really special. Yeah,
Very cool.
I'm really honored. Shout out to Seth for that. They're the best. They're the best. Yeah. So, yeah, all kinds of great stuff. Make sure that you're following Life's Greatest Hits, y'all, on all of the socials. We're at least on Instagram and on Twitter.
We are. We're working on that.
We're working on the other things.
We're building some stuff. We're talking business.
We got a lot of things.
We got a lot of things cooking. We got some really cool shit in the works that we got to start. We got to start
working on.
We got to start working on.
Yeah.
But very, very exciting stuff. So, if you follow along, awesome.
Yeah.
And we can't wait to share that. Those things with you. So.
Yeah, and don't forget to follow Jordan Foley in the Wheelhouse on all the socials. Don't forget to follow the Marinade. If you find Marinade Podcast on everything except for Facebook, we're on all the things. We're on Blue Sky, y'all. I'm on Mastodon. You can find me on Mastodon.
What's Mastodon?
It's like this. It's not worth our time.
The band?
Not the band, but they kind of rip.
They do rip.
So yeah, make sure you follow everything, and y'all, I'm so excited for this episode. This is going to be probably our most unique and diverse of sound, sonically our most diverse episode. I think.
I think last week, the last episode was very much unified in ways that we didn't see coming.
Yep.
I do think that this is going to be a very diverse.
It's going to go in different directions, and you're up first, buddy.
I am. So we've been switching off. Very excited to dive into it. So D'Angelo, Black Messiah.
Yep, D'Angelo and the Vanguard, Black Messiah.
When you first sent it to me or handed this record to me, I was like, oh man, this might change my life, and it did, my dude. It really. You hit the nail on the head with this record. It's my favorite that you've given me so far.
I figured it would be.
It really is.
I figured it was a slam dunk.
I mean, it goes without saying. I do know of D'Angelo. Loved his music growing up, especially. How could we forget the music video?
Of course.
The iconic shower music video. Yeah. The first time I ever saw a man taking a shower on TV, on TRL, and being like, what is going on right now?
It's sexy as hell.
Sexy as hell. And the song was amazing.
The song is amazing.
And I just remember being like, what is going on right now? And, it was wild. So that's a very core memory. I mean, TRL in general, we could spend a lot of time on that, but I digress. That whole, experience of just knowing musically how sound D'Angelo is as an artist. And he set a tone with his music way beyond Black Messiah. And what's cool is seeing this album come to fruition, which I had heard about. I had known about the album, but funny enough, I just did not dive into it the way that I should have when it first came out. So it was released, what was it? 2015, 14 years after the last release by D'Angelo. And dude, I mean, I don't even want to get into the record yet. Could we just talk about the fucking players on this album?
Oh, yeah, for
Questlove.
Sure. Yeah.
Questlove is by far one of my favorite drummers, probably of all time. Like, the dude is unstoppable. Yeah. And you can hear just in the tone of the album his influence. And you also hear a lot of Prince's influence as well, which was very apparent and very real. Yeah. But yeah, I mean when I first listened to this record, I was like, whoa. I don't know how else to. Yeah. I was like right off the jump with "Ain't That Easy," the intro track. Like, I was like, this album is going to literally, as I said before, is going to change my whole life. And I think it speaks volumes for just how connected everything is from start to finish. And I love a comprehensive album. Yeah. An album that everything blends in together in such a beautiful way. I I really dove into a lot of things about, behind it. D'Angelo being called R&B Jesus, and being like they're literally taking a big risk. He took a big risk in making this album and doing something different and bringing in so many different influences. He learned how to play guitar, and what was cool was that somebody mentioned how it took 14 years to make this album. And then Rolling Stone magazine said it will take at least 14 years to absorb all the pleasures from this album. This album, Black Messiah, is hands down, like, I have to buy it for myself now because it is a house party album. If I'm going to have people over, that would be the music that I would want to be playing immediately, without question. The first 3 songs, I was like, this is house party jams, like, because it sets a mood, it sets a tone. It's nice, and it's like not in your face, it's not too reserved, it's just right in the pocket. Amazing elements vocally. I mean, vocally, it's wild. The screeching in some parts, but it's also like, again, it's like it's held back to a certain degree to be influential to the music itself. I love that. The musicality, unreal. They literally call this album a dictionary of soul, and it hit the nail on the head. I can't say that enough. That this album really inspired. It's very inspiring, and it's always cool to take in an album from outside of a genre, outside the typical genres that I listen to, and to be super blown away by it. Just speaks a lot of volumes. Also, and correct me if I'm wrong, but is there something different about the way the vinyl plays as opposed to how the tracks are on Spotify or like on a streaming service? Because there's like a rawness to the way that this album played. And when I first heard it, I was like, whoa, this is like gritty and raw, as opposed to like I would play it on a Spotify track and see a difference there.
Well, I don't know. So this would get beyond my pay grade when it comes to just engineering and that kind of thing. But it is analog to tape recorded.
That checks out. Yeah.
They don't even know how much it cost, apparently, because the whole thing, he's a perfectionist.
Yeah, he is.
And the whole thing was analog to tape. So that's what you're hearing, that warmth that you're hearing on the record. And I'm just, you can probably speak to this better than I can, having recorded music and been around it in the way that you have, that like, I just think you're going to lose some of that on streaming. I think.
Totally.
It, right. That's
totally.
But yeah, it's analog to tape.
There's definitely a realness to the vinyl.
I guess analog to tape is probably redundant, huh?
No.
Okay.
No, analog. I mean, that's the phrase. Okay. Yeah, I think you got it.
All right.
See, we need a producer.
We do.
Like, we really need to fact check what the hell we're saying. But you're on the money. You really are. Such a cohesive album. I can't express that enough. All these songs are so great, and then Really Love comes on, and it made my heart melt. Like, my heart melted. I was like, oh my God. And I played it for Mariah last night because it just hit me. It hit right at home. Feeling like you don't have the words to tell somebody how much they mean to you. That song, folks, if you are wanting to share a song that is a love song with your loved one or significant other, Really Love is the way to go. I truly believe that. And then Betray My Heart, that song ripped me to shreds towards the end of the record too. So I was like, man, I love this song, this song, and this song. And then I heard Betray My Heart at the end, and that trumped all of them. Yeah. I hate saying that fucking word.
Well, don't worry. I'm wearing my Mamas Don't Let Your Cowboys Grow Up to Be Racist shirt, so we're counteracting that. Counteracting your accidental Trump reference.
Golly.
This is an intentional statement I'm making right here, given that the election is right around the corner.
Man.
We don't have to get into that.
It's a wild
at
time.
the moment, but
it is a wild
I think
time.
y'all know where we both stand.
Yeah. No, it definitely that song really blew me away. Yeah, I mean this is really from start to finish my favorite album you've provided.
Hell yeah.
And the one that you've brought to the party. It just goes without saying, D'Angelo really spent a lot of time on this album, and I think I think back to just me personally. I spent, the band and I spent 2 years on our first album that we released last year.
Yeah.
And that felt like forever. So if somebody's spending 14 years on making the best music that they could possibly make, D'Angelo did it.
Yeah.
And he did it while still like showing his affection for his heroes, Marvin Gaye, and Prince, and the artists that came before him and brought this neo soul sound to R&B, brought this realness, a raw style that is honestly like unlike any other. Which brings me to the next point is that I really value that you are giving me albums that have pushed boundaries, I think. So just as a collective, in looking back at the majority of the albums that we've been listening to or you've been sharing with me so far, I see a connection with this and the Shooter Jennings album where it's like I'm pushing a boundary of something bigger than me, something bigger than my music. This is something that I want to literally make an impact on. And when you see the impact that this album had on Black Lives Matter and the marching and standing up for rights and protests and being heard. I mean, there are some lyrics here in these songs that they don't fuck around, and they're letting you know, like we as a people, we are not being treated fairly. And for D'Angelo to be the speaker of the house per se, to be that Black Messiah, to be the one to say, hey, like here's some music to really get behind. It speaks volumes, and it really impacted me just by listening to it. And there was a quote that I had heard D'Angelo say. He said, "The title is about all of us. We should all aspire to be a Black Messiah."
Damn.
Yeah. He said we should all aspire to be a Black Messiah, and it really makes you think. It makes you wonder, like. I've been hearing a lot lately this phrase of like, oh, they're the main character. We're just living in their story. Like when you point out somebody who like has that type of aura around them or that type of gravity of how people can gravitate towards somebody, or there's like an attraction to somebody. And there's like, well, and it's like, I know it's like twofold where it almost sounds like a dig, like, oh, we're just living in their world. But it does make you think like we are all just going through it. We're all just going through shit. And for any artist to be able to convey the shit that people are going through, it really takes my breath away. It makes me feel like there's something bigger than me. There's something bigger than my brand or my name or my music or what I'm trying to do or the music I listen to in general or the politics I'm believing in and I follow and I pay attention to or the lives we try to live. I think we should take a note from D'Angelo and really find a way to stand tall on what we believe in and who we are. And that was the big takeaway. Yeah, it was a great album.
Hell yeah.
Great album. Very
Dude.
great. Can't wait to buy it.
I'm so glad you enjoyed it so much.
Why'd you choose it?
Dude.
Hit me. Not physically.
I think that would be
Hold back.
That'd be folly on my part.
No. A man of steel.
So I'm going to pull up some lyrics.
Oh, hell yeah. I pulled out some lyrics, too.
So there's a song, The Charade.
Yep.
And I'm going to read the lyrics, part of the lyrics, and then I want to talk about what was happening at the time that this record hit me and why it hit me so hard. And then I want to talk about D'Angelo in sort of the greater context of popular culture in my lifetime.
Awesome.
Crawling through a systemic maze, and it pains to demise, pain in our eyes, strain of drowning, wading into your lies, degradation so loud that you can't hear the sound of our cries. All the dreamers have gone to the side of the road which we will lay on, inundated by media, virtual mind fucks in streams. All we wanted was a chance to talk. Instead, we only got outlined in chalk. Feet have bled 1,000,000 miles we've walked, revealing at the end of the day the charade.
Dude, I have fucking chills. The line with the chalk that stood out to me when I listened to it.
So when this record was released, I was still living in Jacksonville. I was teaching middle school. 99% of my kids were black. They were all from the north and west sides of Jacksonville, which are some of the toughest neighborhoods in the country. Michael Brown had been murdered in Ferguson, Missouri by a white cop. Eric Gardner had been choked to death by a white cop. When this record was released, I was staring at young black faces while simultaneously the Republican presumptive nominee for president was only in that position because he was running a racist campaign. Mm-hmm. And I was feeling such anger and frustration, confusion. I felt like I needed to do something, but at the same time, what do I do? I'm trying to do it every day. I'm trying to do the work. I'm trying to be an example for my kids, but also more importantly for other people who look like me and sound like me. And this record comes out, and he wasn't going to release it like this. They were going to do a proper release, and they just dropped it. They just dropped it because he was pissed off that, and rightfully so, that racist-ass cop in Ferguson, Missouri got away with murder. Mm-hmm. And I remember, like, people, I think a lot of folks, we have such amnesia now because of so much has happened. Because of the things that have happened since then. All kinds of wild shit has happened since then.
Oh, yeah.
That was wild.
Yeah.
What was happening then. I mean, the birth of the Black Lives Matter movement was inspiring, but also terrifying.
Yeah.
Inspiring from the standpoint of, thankfully, people are paying attention to systemic racism. Terrifying from the point of view of, well, it's leading to a backlash from a lot of white folks to say, well, we got a racist candidate we're going to prop up. And so when this record comes out, first of all, I was a huge D'Angelo fan. I love those first records. I was crazy about them. They're sexy. They're soulful. They're beautiful. They're unlike anything else. And I'm going to talk about that briefly in a second. But I just read you those lyrics. He's not fucking around on this record. And all the things that you said, I just completely agree with. I'm glad that it connected with you the way that it connects with me. The way that I feel about it as well. There's nobody like this guy. And I think when I think of generational talents in our lifetime, I'm not going to count Prince because he was alive when we were alive, but he kind of predates us to some extent. In our lifetimes, when I think of the true genius greats, you got D'Angelo. There's just a handful to me. There's D'Angelo. There's Jason Isbell. There's Kendrick Lamar. There is Sturgill Simpson. I may not even get to a fifth.
Yeah.
Like, these are people who transcend genre. These are people who are making music that is completely unique. In my experience, at least, right? I mean, there's so much out there. There's so many incredibly talented people. But the music, the popular music that I consume, I don't think it gets any better than D'Angelo. And one thing that was, I don't know if your research uncovered this, but one of the reasons why it took so long is that he's been through some shit. He went to rehab several times. He really kind of hit rock bottom several times. He wanted to make this record for a while. He got dropped by his label. And then to come back and to make this record in the way that he made it, that's really, to me, it's one of those rare examples of a perfect record. He couldn't have done it any better. The artwork is perfect. I love the gatefold. Every single song is a 10 out of 10. There's no even, forget skips. There's no like turn your brain off. There's no, I'm going to tune this one out for a second. Every one of them makes me want to move, want to cry, want to sing. I just don't think there's anybody on the planet that's making popular music as well as D'Angelo did on this record. It's beyond, in my lifetime, it's one of my top 10, if we're not including records that came out before I was born. yeah, I think for me, when I was thinking about records, that this is a top 10 of my lifetime record, right? And so that's why I chose this record. D'Angelo has always, to me, felt like, those guys that feel like they're not from this planet, like there's some sort of something that's been handed down to them from the ether somewhere. D'Angelo is that kind of artist, and I don't want to minimize it because he clearly works incredibly hard, right? Mm-hmm. So like if you in doing the research, as you uncovered and I uncovered, he worked incredibly hard on this album. He wanted to play every instrument on the album.
Yep.
He ends up kind of co-producing it, but he wanted to just basically have his hand in every single thing. And I also, to put a bow on it, I love a redemption story, man. I love somebody who they signed him when he was a teenager, mm-hmm. right? And so those first couple records come out, he's really, really young. Mm-hmm. And then he goes through it. He wasn't used to the fame, all the things that the cautionary tales happened to him.
Yeah.
And he gets arrested several times. He ends up in rehab. He relapses. He ends up back in rehab. And then to come back from all that and to make this record, just lights a fire under me.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. What a special reason and explanation. It sets a precedent. And that's what I kept thinking about with this album is it sets the standard. I can't maybe it's because I keep I'm on that Steelers kick, the standard is the standard.
Oh,
but
Christ.
I do
gave you this Jaguars. I almost gave you this Jaguars koozie today to see if you even noticed.
No, I don't. We won't go down that rabbit hole of ripping into each other's football teams, but
only you and I enjoy that.
Yeah, nobody else wants to hear that shit. But there is the standard, and I agree with what you said about there are only so many artists out there who really can make that big of an impact.
Yeah,
and it was all encompassing, and it just goes without saying. And what's even crazier? We can move on to your album here in a sec. You read off those lines from the charade, and what's even crazier is I wrote down lines from the charade that wasn't even that. It wasn't even those lines.
Okay, yeah.
Perpetrators beware. Say a prayer if you dare for the believers, with a faith at the size of a seed enough to be redeemed. Relegated to savages bound by the way of the deceivers. So anchors, be sure that you're sure we ain't no amateurs.
Dude
doesn't miss.
No, he doesn't miss.
Like lyrically, sonically, musically, the guy fucking made a masterpiece.
And you mentioned Questlove earlier, who's revered as somebody who's universally respected as somebody who knows music.
Easily.
And the way he talks about this album, he compares him to Stevie Wonder and Prince.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's unfair. I think like it's that good, right? I mean, Prince is the apt comparison. D'Angelo's not nearly as prolific as Prince was, but in terms of quality, I mean, all of his records and again, we've talked about Kendrick before. When I think about D'Angelo, they don't make the same kind of music, but to me, they're so similar. I think about those guys so similar. They do something that, to me, is as good as anybody who's ever done it does it. Mm-hmm. And I'm talking about, again, we're comparing him to fucking Prince, D'Angelo, right? We're comparing him to like Stevie Wonder. Yeah. I am, at least.
It turns to gold.
And I just think
turns to gold.
I
Hard
think
work.
That
hard work
he deserves. He deserves to be mentioned in those breaths.
Absolutely. And it's one of those things when I mentioned the house party, like this is a house party album. It's not just because it's like a fun album. It's not. I mean, it's heavy. It has its moments. I said that because whoever walks in that door is going to be either say one of two things. Who is this? You like D'Angelo?
Yeah.
Like it's like there's a musical camaraderie of oh, you fuck with D'Angelo?
Yeah.
Oh, Jordan's on another level. I know. Jason's on another level. I had no idea that he really and again, I got to admit, before diving into this album, I didn't know what to expect because it goes back to that core memory of the shower music video of being like, I know how influential he is. I know the music that he made is amazing. And I did know about this album. I did not know the type of impact it was about to have on me. So well played, sir.
Hell yeah, dude.
Well done.
I'm glad. Well, you gave me Johnnyswim's Georgica Pond.
Georgica Pond.
I want to start with a story.
Ooh.
You went to Nashville recently. We've been Nashvilling. And the more time I spend in Nashville, the more comfortable I feel there, the more at home I feel there. And
Just a bunch of Nashvillans.
We've been Nashvilling.
That should be, yeah.
Yeah. That one's probably not going to get clipped at the beginning.
No. Keep that in.
All right, we will. And I went to Jason Isbell, the aforementioned Jason Isbell, and his 400 units Ryman run. I had the most incredible weekend. I went with some friends. It was beautiful. The show was one of the best I've ever seen. And then we went out in Nashville. And we went out to No Quarter. Shout out No Quarter, one of my favorite bars in the world. Free pub for y'all. I love that place. Always take care of me, and it's always great. And then we were all exhausted, right? It's getting late, but we hadn't eaten in hours. So, late night, we've all been out, run to fast food. And there's a chain of restaurants in the South, at least. I don't know where else it is, but you might have seen it on tour, called Backyard.
Sounds familiar. Is it like a cookout? Is it like
It's
cookout?
called Cookout. It's not called Backyard. It's called
Cookout.
Cookout.
I love cookout.
Yeah. It's called Cookout.
That's my shit.
My bad.
I actually went to probably the same cookout that you went to with Elizabeth Ward and Luke Wagner years and years, and years ago.
In East Nashville?
In East Nashville.
All right.
Yep.
Cookout, not Backyard.
Cookout.
This is foreshadowing. So, a couple English teachers. So we go to Cookout and we order, I got some fries. I didn't want much, and I had a bite of somebody's, other stuff and whatever. And it, to me, and this is going to lead into our conversation about this record, and this isn't what I mean exactly, but Cookout was hot garbage.
Oh, shit.
I hated it.
You didn't like it?
It was so gross.
Aw. You're picky.
I'm picky.
It's okay.
I'm not picky about food.
Kyle Keller's also picky. Kyle
he?
Keller is a bona fide, identified picky eater.
I'm not a picky eater. That's not true. I'm not a picky eater. I just don't eat fast food, and I think it kind of caught me off guard because I haven't eaten fast food in years. Sure. If there's a work function and there's a Chick-fil-A sandwich, I'm gonna eat it, right? But I'm not gonna go to Chick-fil-A. Yeah. I'm not gonna go to McDonald's or whatever, right? So,
garbage.
It's going to lead to our conversation.
That Georgica Pond is garbage?
Well, not quite, but it's going to lead to our conversation. It's going to lead to our conversation. And so anyway, I posted, the next day, Max Fine, the comedian, who has been a guest on my show on The Marinade and who I adore, has been so sweet to me and so great. He posted that he was going, a picture of him going through a cookout. And I sent him a message, because we message sometimes. I sent him a message man, I had my first experience there. I was like, man, I had my first experience there. What a shithole. And then he responded back, what? ? And I, in my brain, was like, we all accept that this is a shithole and it's hot garbage. So I responded thinking, I just said I'd never had it before because we don't have them in Florida, because I thought he was surprised I'd never had it before. And then a couple days later, I woke up and I'm like, Jason, you asshole. You just yucked this dude's yum. He likes this place, and apparently people do. And I was being a pretentious dick, making fun of his shit. And I've been in my head about it ever since, and I've been drafting, various messages to him that I haven't sent.
Dear Max, I'm so sorry I hurt your feelings about Cookout.
Would you like to have a cookout with me?
Sometime when you're coming through Georgia, and we're in the same area, I will meet you halfway, and we will have Cookout together if you will come onto my podcast.
I'm ready to drive to Georgia to make it up to Max.
My God.
I feel so bad. So anyway, that leads me to Georgica Pond.
Oh my God, what a setup, dude.
Jordan, I don't get it at all.
Okay.
I don't get it at all. I mean, okay, I get this. Husband and wife duo. They have chemistry. That's
Uh-huh.
clear. They can both sing.
Yeah.
Right? I get that. That's it. That's all I get about it. And I think I know why. And I want to unpack it. So rather than talk about the album, I want to talk about something that I think is that we and our tastes differ on, and that I want to unpack for myself because I wonder what it says about me.
Okay.
Okay. So I will say before I get into that there was a moment that I was really excited about when you mentioned that I've been playing a lot lately. There was a moment where I was listening to the title track, and it's kind of like hearkening back to home and that kind of thing, right? And I wrote a song because it inspired me to pick up my pen. So I put down this record that I was not connecting with, and then I went and wrote a song, which was really cool. So I'm grateful for it for that reason, but I'm also grateful for it because it made me think about this. I don't like pop music. I'm nostalgic for some of the pop music of my childhood, but this is a glossy pop record. This is a radio-friendly pop record. This is something that could appeal to such a broad swath of people. And I don't know whether I'm an asshole that I don't like pop music or I don't connect with it because it doesn't fulfill a need that I have. And I was trying to compare it to other pop music that's out now, right? This record's not out now. This is
2016.
Okay, so similar time to the D'Angelo record, coincidentally. But I think about now, well, even then, Taylor Swift was big then. I don't get Taylor Swift at all. I don't understand why people like her. I guess I understand why people like her. I just do not understand why she's so big. I don't like the songs. People talk about her songwriting. It doesn't hit for me. I don't connect with it. Chapel Rowan's all the rage right now. I don't get that even sort of. I'm trying. I've listened. Every time a Taylor Swift record comes out, I listen to it one time.
Same.
And
I give it a shot.
It never hits for me.
Yeah, I gave Sabrina Carpenter a shot recently.
Didn't hit for me.
I have thoughts. I'll hold off.
Okay. But what I want to unpack is because I do think that you are your taste, you appreciate pop music or poppier music in a way that I don't. This came up in our Zach Bryan conversation. And I think I'm curious about that, whether it has to do with the way you approach songwriting and your craft, whether it is, I guess I'm asking what it is that that you connect with this record so that I can kind of understand why I just don't get it. Like, I just don't get it at all.
Well, was there, before I go into it, were there any other points that you wanted to make, or is that like,
no,
this kind of goes into, all right, let's just dig into it.
Because the thing about it is that I think what I kept hearing as I'm listening to the songs is to me, it was like my brain would shut off. It would do the same thing as like when I hear a Taylor Swift song, I just go, that's background noise for me now. And believe me, you know me. When I'm doing this, I do the listening, I give it all the research, all the opportunity.
More. I would go as far as to say this: you do more work than
I read articles.
Yeah.
I mean, NPR's review described them as sparkly pop songs.
Wow.
And that was a thing
that's so wild.
That was a thing to me that I was like, that's what I heard. And then I'm just so curious, like, what you connect with, because I didn't expect what I heard. I don't know what I expected. And I also think I confused them with another band that has Johnny in the name. And I don't know who exactly, but I think I was expecting like almost like progressive folk of some sort. And
like Shovels and Rope or something?
No. Like I was expecting like almost, I think my brain, whoever I'm thinking of, is almost like punk leaning folk music.
Okay.
And this is not that.
It's not. Well, first, before I say anything, I value your opinions on all the music that I'm sharing, and I think we do have this level of like, I want to see where you would be with this. It's the same thing with the Zach Bryan album. I knew that you were like, nah, I don't know. I haven't really tapped in. I don't know how I feel about Zach. The reason why I gave this to you is because ultimately I wanted to give you something that was a little out of left field and to see where you're at with it. The last thing that I think either you or I want to do is just bash records.
No desire.
So like this is not, just to be very clear. Yeah, of course. So to just, I've said this before on the show, and you know this about me, that when music impacts me, it tends to be in a moment of my life. And whether or not it's any type of genre, there's something that speaks to me in that moment that I can't let go of, or I can't take my hands off of it. And so to just give you the scene, to paint the scene for you, 2016, I went through a really bad breakup. Worst breakup of my life. It was really hard. I at the time I was very naive and thought like, oh, like this is it for me, and I'm not worried about anything else. Mm-hmm. It'll all fall into place. And I was looking at all my friends and seeing them, get married and feeling kind of like, oh, I gotta jump on board with this. It's my turn, and this is gonna be great. And I was so fucking wrong. My job as a teacher ended. I left that role and I started a new job working with web content in another part of town here in Orlando. Excuse me. That ultimately all these things that I was going through at that time led to my writing of my own music in 2018 and releasing that, Gift to Get a Day. At the time, there were only so many artists that really were getting me through. And it wasn't necessarily this album, Georgica by Johnnyswim. It was the shit they did before it. Johnnyswim possibly has one of the best live albums I've ever heard. Live at Rockwood Music Hall in New York City. And they've only released it as a CD. Okay. And I don't have it. But there's something about it in the grit and because they do have, they have a bit of a poppy sound, especially here. They are garnering, they're friends with Steph Curry, and they have a cooking channel, and they're married, they have kids, they're feeding into a demographic that is eating that up, especially in my generation or in our generation, people who want to see happy go lucky type of family that really works hard at their craft. So I think in terms of this album, this was them maturing into all right, well, let's try to write some new stuff, and let's try to use our harmonies and go into a more pop centric direction. But they did start out very much folky, very, Abner, he started with some grit. He has a song about his dad dying and how he feels like he has to, he's like, I have to give payback to the people who wronged my dad. And he has a song about that. And the way he sings it in this live album, Rockwood Music Hall, fucking gets you.
Yeah. Cause
it's raw and real. And so my affection to Johnnyswim came at a time where I was lost. I was the most lost I'd ever been. I was confused, and I looked to them and was like, that's the life I want. I want to have a partner who I can sing with. I want to, hit the road and really do the damn thing and believe in each other. And they seemed so unbreakable. Yeah. And there was such a layer of authenticity to them. We're not fucking around. We're not lying to you. We're not we're giving you everything that we got. We're raw. And I saw them live at the Beecham with my friend Sarah, and they blew me away. It was in November 2016, and it was right before this album came out, and they did what they did on the Rockwood Music Hall album. They came out into the crowd and they played right in front of me, and I just felt an energy, and I felt this this is going to send me in the direction I need to go. This is going to get me out of whatever hole I'm fucking sunk into and feeling lost and feeling hopeless. They're going to get me out if I just listen to their music every single day. And when Georgica came out, I sucked it up just the way that I did all their other stuff. And I straight up, I tweeted them and was like, this is my favorite album of all time. Because in the moment, I was like, I just want them to know what they're doing for me.
Yeah.
You know, I want them to know like that it's not just the Rockwood Music Hall album. It's not just the previous songs about home and about life and about hardships and about troubles. And, you know, it's more than that. It's a sense of hope of like, this is the life that I could possibly live.
Yeah. And
I spent years, I mean, up until I met Mariah, believing that I'm meant to be with somebody that's like that like is my ride or die. Shit. Come on now. I'm good. You gotta let them run. Gotta let the tears run. No, that there is hope at the end of the tunnel. There's hope at the end of the road. And, you know, Georgica came out and it was a little lighter and it was a little bit more like, you know, and I, you know, Georgica is like literally a pond at their house in the Hamptons. And so, of course, they're like at this level of success, right? Where they're like, you know, and also like Amanda is Donna Summers' daughter. So like,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So quick background.
That didn't come up.
Abner, this was another reason why I gave it to you. Abner is from Jacksonville.
Yeah, I saw that.
So there was another
Douglas Anderson. Shout out DA.
Yeah. So there was another level of like, I just want to see what this does for you. Now, this is talking about 2016 Jordan.
Yeah.
You know, I haven't visited this record in years. I haven't. And I wanted to bring something specifically diverse and challenging to be like, where do you see this? How do you connect to it? And I got to tell you, I was listening to it today and I've grown apart from it. This album in particular, I don't connect to it. The one song that always gets me with this album is Let It Matter. If you're feeling pain, or if you're feeling down, or if you're feeling lost, let it fucking breathe. Let it matter. Let it mean something. Like sift in it. You're allowed to. We are. That's a part of life. We're human. We're emotional. We're sensical. We're lost. We're a mess. We're chaotic. Our worlds are nuts. You know. Bask in it for a little bit.
Yeah. Find
the pain. You know, find the pain and work through it. And they did that for me, man. For about 2 straight years, they got me through some really tough times. So I look back on my affection for Johnnyswim in that era of my life in those years. And I just think about how grateful I am. I wish, like, there aren't too many artists that I wish that I would want to go up and thank for a certain like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is because I'm grateful for what they did for me. There is now I will say I have a sweatshirt. There was a sweatshirt that I had of theirs that I bought at that show, and I no longer have it. A girl that I dated at some point took it, and I haven't seen it ever since.
Yep, that'll happen.
You know, and so like Georgica, this album is really the only thing that I have connected to them, in hand. And I will tell you, like, if I could have, maybe in retrospect, I wish I had given you Rockwood Music Hall because it just. There's something about it. And you might not even connected to that either.
Yeah.
But there is something about the authenticity and the strength that they had on that album and the moments on that album. And I think this also goes hand in hand with saying that like artists are constantly trying to change, or not even just change, but evolve and become better than what they came out with last time. I mean, that's like this whole, that is the way that the cookie crumbles. That's the way that the world goes round, you know, funny enough that I just said that, but there is a sense of like, how do I do better than what I just accomplished?
Sure.
I felt that as an artist, and I don't know what that looks like. And I do think that we go through phases. I hear a Johnnyswim song now, and, you know, it is one of those where it's like, okay, I like what you're doing. thanks again for getting me through 2016 to 2018.
Yeah.
You know, so really that's what that came down to. That's why I have that record. Ultimately, was because I was so excited for the potential of it. And I still, you know, I listened to it today and I felt some things, but I also realized like, oh, Jason might not like this as much. Like it might not hit as well as I thought it would. And I think that goes hand in hand with the fact that like, we're just trying to test the waters of what we're listening to, you know, and we do spend a lot of time, on listening to these albums. And I think that the tough thing of it is that a lot of our favorite albums we both know.
Right.
So like we are expanding to the outreaches, to the farthest outreach of like our own like catalog of vinyl collection of like, what can I bring to the table that would be different? Going back to what you said about pop music in general, I have found that I do have a little bit more of an affection for pop music that even I realized, but it's because I don't listen to radio. I don't listen to, you know, what are the hits right now. I don't know about Chapel Roan other than Hot to Go is like the YMCA of 2024. Like I just
heard it at the Magic Game for the first time.
That's it, man. The Hot to Go thing. I think I'm past it age-wise. And, you know, back to like talking about Sabrina Carpenter, like Mariah got stuck. This is a funny story real quick. Sabrina Carpenter just performed at the Kia Center in Orlando last week.
Wow, she's that big?
Yeah, that big.
Whoa.
Mariah was coming home from her show, Phantasmagoria, which was awesome, by the way. Shout out. She got stuck in the traffic because the GPS said, you know, take this route because you're trying to avoid tolls, whatever. She got stuck right in the middle of a Sabrina Carpenter show.
Oh no!
And it was mayhem. She was like, I can't move. I can't go anywhere.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
And it is wild, man. I mean, it is.
I think the big question that has been looming for me is something that I was talking about last night was like, I think the reason why pop music doesn't connect with me as much is because what I'm looking for from music isn't fulfilled by most pop music.
Mm-hmm. That's valid.
And somebody listening to Sabrina Carpenter or Chapel Roan or Taylor Swift, whatever they need from music is being fulfilled by that.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times what I almost
it's also
always,
an image thing too.
Yeah, well, I don't.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut
I
off.
know, but I don't. I tread softly there because, again, I don't want to yuck somebody's yum.
Of course.
You know, like that's the thing that I've noticed. Our mutual friend Jen Ross, my dear friend, great photographer, collaborator on the Marinade often, is into Chapel Roan. She's digging it, and they played that song you just referenced at the Magic Game. Yeah,
Hot to Go.
It was the first time I'd heard it, and I was like, Jen, this is what I'm talking about. I do not connect with this at all. And she's like singing along with it, and she's really feeling it. I just don't get this. It is not for me, and that's okay if it's not for you, you know? But I think what it comes down to is like what I'm looking for from music is so often I need it to. I very rarely have background music. When I'm listening to music, I need it to help me understand my current moment in some way. And if it doesn't do that, and different types of music, obviously, as we've talked about on this podcast and you and I have talked about off mic, different types of music fulfill that for me in different ways.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be from my existence. I gravitate toward people who make music who have a similar existence. I gravitate toward Americana music. I gravitate toward country music and bluegrass. But it doesn't have to be that. It can be D'Angelo, whose existence is very different from mine, but yet our lives intersect in certain ways, as I mentioned earlier. And so that's what I come to music for. I very rarely come to music for what I perceive people get from a Taylor Swift or a Chapel Roan or whatever, which I think is more of just sort of like I want to feel the beat, and I want to, I lock into lyrics. I'm paying attention. I think about words a lot. And if a record doesn't do that for me, then I'm gonna put it down. And I think that's where I kind of land on pop music in general. I think is kind of what I've unpacked. That's
really cool. It's important to be able to know thyself, and know about why you listen to music the way you do or how you go about it. I mean, I feel like we spend a lot of time talking about that exact factor. I mean, the last episode I talked about I want to feel something, and when I was feeling in the sorrows that I was feeling in 2016, their words spoke to me in a way that I couldn't. They're the only ones who were like, it felt like they were singing to me.
Yeah.
And, I also do think that there is, sure, it's pop, but it's also there is an element of like, that like folk, alternative folk, indie sound to it that I gravitate towards, like the Need to Breathe. And there are some like Drew Holcomb, there are some like wholesome artists who sing about some positive stuff, and there is a layer of artistry there that has shifted, again in this sense of like, hey, like anything is possible, you got to just keep believing and know that it's going to be okay, kind of like reassuring thing. I think there's another song, I can't believe I'm blanking on it and I'm bringing it up. But there's a song, Heavy by Bird Talker, came out around the same time, and the line, the chorus is like, leave what's heavy behind. Like that's the line, like whatever's heavy, whatever you're dealing with, like leave it behind. And so in terms of listening to music that's speaking to you, there are words there that were really like helping me get through what I was going through. I do think there are a lot that people don't spend time thinking about that the way that we do, or you do, or I do, or where they're like, I want to listen to this because it's going to make me feel something. A lot of times people do just put on music just to have music.
They do, which is
on.
fine. It's just not how I consume it.
And I think that's a good segue into like, again, asking folks, like, we want to know how you feel about stuff too. And if you hear our episodes and you have a sticking point or you have a thought on what we're talking about, like, hit us, because hit us with it, because we are just two dudes listening who love listening to music. I love putting on a record at the end of the day after a day of work and just sitting and chilling and taking that record in. We've been consuming a lot of records. We buy a lot of records, and I think this podcast is developing its own identity, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And it's taking shape. So that goes hand in hand with, again, folks, like if you're hearing something, let us know what you think about it.
Hit us up in the comments on Instagram. Don't forget to follow Life's Greatest Hits on Instagram.
Yeah.
Make sure that you are interacting with us there. Send us messages, y'all. Those DMs are open. Send us some messages.
They are open, yeah.
Give us some comments. Also on Twitter. Let's get some conversation going there. Maybe you're a crazy crazy. Listen to me. Maybe you're a super fan of Johnnyswim. I'm not shitting on Johnnyswim. It just didn't hit for me. Maybe you're a super fan of D'Angelo. Maybe you don't like D'Angelo, and then you are crazy. But hit us up. Let us know what you want to see and hear. Make sure you follow Jordan Foley and the Wheelhouse on all the socials, and the Marinade at Marinade podcast. And let's tease them on what we've got coming up next. Yeah. So I'm gonna give you Tim Barry's High on 95.
Oh yeah.
I don't want to say too much about this because I'm really excited to talk about Tim Barry and my origin story as a fan. So I'm not going to say too much about it other than I'm really looking forward to what you think about it.
Yeah, that's great. Next episode, it's going to be a cool episode. I am giving you Chance the Rapper's Acid Rap.
I'm excited, dude. He's one of those artists that I've always wanted to dive into. My dear friend Blaine Stein, shout out Blaine, is a huge Chance fan, and always tried to get me into him. And it's not that I haven't wanted to; it's just I don't know. It just doesn't line up sometimes, right? You're busy with other things. Somebody sends you a link. You're like, you give it a listen. You're like, oh, I need to return to that, and I just never do. Yeah. So you couldn't have picked a better one, man. I'm really excited. I do know a couple of the songs because they were just so big, right?
Sure.
Like
maybe not from Acid Rap though.
Oh.
So
okay.
like Chance, Acid Rap, just as a quick back. Well, maybe. I mean, he's had some
Cocoa
hits,
Butter
don't get me
Kisses
wrong.
was a huge
Yeah, that is a
song.
good one.
That's one I noticed.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
I was thinking more just this was very much more. I don't want to say underground, but it was like not.
Or maybe it wasn't huge. It just came into my
This
world.
This
don't know.
album wasn't out on any of the streaming services other than SoundCloud
cool.
for a long time.
Awesome.
So yeah, so I'm looking forward to diving into that as well for multiple reasons. And you know, like Jason said, like we're just two dudes just wanting to talk shop and talk music. And if you're following along, thank you so much. Thanks for following us, and you know, keep listening. We have a lot. When we were saying earlier in the episode, like we do have some really, really cool shit in the works. 2025 is going to be a cool year. I think we're gonna hit the ground running with this thing and see where we can go with it. I'm already thinking merch ideas.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, like
yeah.
I carry my backpack over here. You know, we live down the street from each other, which is awesome.
Like a block and a half.
Yeah. So when I walk over, my laptop backpack isn't big enough to carry records. And, you know, they have those record tote bags, right, where you can, like, load that up. Well, what if we made vinyl backpacks where it's a backpack that you could put your records in?
Dude, I would use that, like, weekly.
And it literally said Life's Greatest Hits on it.
I would use that thing weekly.
So, folks, we're just thinking about the merch that we would want to have ourselves.
Yeah.
If that's something that you
Dude,
want.
that's a great fucking
Thank you.
idea.
Let's fucking patent it. Like,
yeah.
let's make that happen.
I might edit that out so no one steals that idea.
You can, and just tell them what you just said there. Like, I don't want anybody to steal that idea.
Yeah.
I do have to do the research to see if it's already out there. I didn't, like, look it up yet. But it is an idea, and we're building. We're growing. You know, Life's Greatest Hits, the whole premise started from the idea of just sharing music that I love. I have a playlist on Spotify literally called Life's Greatest Hits, where I've taken all the songs that I've fallen in love with over the years, and I compile it into this playlist. And it has continued since I started making it, where I'm like, oh, that song is deemed worthy to be added to Life's Greatest Hits because it made me feel something. I loved it. It's a banger. It's a jam, whatever that might be. The whole reason why I started it was to be able to just have an avenue of sharing music. And the fact that we can do it with physical copies still, you know, where it's not so digitized, it really says a lot. So thanks everybody for tuning in. We appreciate y'all, and we'll see you around the bend.
Thanks for sharing your Life's Greatest Hits with us.
Yeah.